The knock on my door wasn't polite, it was violent. A booming thud that rattled the frame and made my coffee spill on the floor. When I opened it, two men stood there in cheap uniforms, plastic badges pinned to their shirts. They called themselves HOA enforcement officers. I knew right then they weren't real cops. They waved a paper in my face, shouting that I owed the HOA $5. $5 for supposedly leaving my trash can out an hour late. I laughed at the absurdity. But they weren't laughing. One of them stepped forward, demanding payment on the spot. When I told them to leave my property, their expressions hardened. That night, just after midnight, I heard the sound of glass shattering. They had broken into my home. My heart pounded, but before I could reach for the phone, a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. My son, David, was visiting for the first time in months. What those fake cops didn't know was that my son wasn't just any man. He was a special forces veteran, trained in combat, survival, and defense. He didn't hesitate. "Get behind me, Dad," he whispered, his voice calm and commanding, the same voice that once led soldiers through war zones. The intruders moved through the dark hallway with flashlights, muttering threats. But the moment they stepped into the living room, David was already there. He disarmed the first man in seconds, twisting his wrist until the fake badge clattered to the floor. The second swung wildly, but my son ducked low, delivered a precise strike, and had him pinned against the wall before I could even process it. I saw fear flash in their eyes. These weren't hardened criminals, they were cowards dressed up as enforcers, drunk on power they thought the law gave them. But they picked the wrong house. When the real sheriff's deputies arrived minutes later, called by neighbors who heard the commotion, the truth poured out. The so-called HOA cops had been hired muscle, used by Karen, the HOA president, to intimidate homeowners into paying bogus fines. It wasn't just me. Other neighbors had been harassed, threatened, and even forced to pay thousands over nonsense rules. But that night changed everything. Karen arrived at the scene in her robe, screaming at the deputies that they had no right to interfere with her men. But when she saw them cuffed and stuffed into the back of real squad cars, her face turned pale. My son stood there, arms crossed, unshaken, the quiet protector who had once defended strangers overseas and was now defending his own family at home. In the following weeks, an investigation revealed the depths of Karen's corruption. She had been using HOA funds to hire enforcers, pocketing money from false fines, and silencing anyone who resisted. But the neighbors weren't silent anymore. They had seen what happened that night. They had seen bravery stand against bullying, truth stand against lies. We voted Karen out. The HOA was stripped of its powers, and the sheriff's office launched charges against those fake officers. For the first time in years, our neighborhood felt like a community again, people sharing stories over fences, not fearing a knock on the door. One evening, as the sun set over the quiet street, I looked at David and asked, "Son, after everything you've been through, do you ever get tired of fighting?" He smiled faintly and shook his head. "It's not about fighting, Dad. It's about protecting. And I'll never be tired of that." That moment stayed with me. Because the truth is, bullies, whether they wear fake badges, sit behind HOA desks, or hide behind rules, only win when good people stay quiet. But when you stand tall, when you fight with courage and truth, you don't just protect yourself. You inspire others to rise too. The $5 fine, it was never about the money. It was about control. But that night proved something far greater. When family, honor, and courage stand together, no amount of fear or intimidation can break you. And in the end, the HOA learned the hardest lesson of all: real strength isn't in power. It's in the people you can't push around.